Hi everyone, welcome to the Optimal Athlete episode 6. As usual, this content has the goal to provide as much value as possible in the less amount of time. But just before we start, I want to thank the sponsor that make this content possible for free. Felt, Laboratoire IVA, DT Swiss, Rule 28, Plaisir Gastronomique, Shimano, FSC Envision, Pirelli Tires, Laser Sport, Maison Bonneville, Toyota Saint-Eustache. Thank you very much for making this content available and free. So, without wasting any time, let's jump straight into it. This week, we're gonna do the Gravel Worlds race recap. This year, it was stream for all the race and the prize money was way bigger, so the competition was way higher, and it's gonna get better and bigger next year. So we're gonna do the race recap of Gravel Worlds. After that, we're gonna jump to why I take creatine since almost a year, why I think the trade-off are worth it. Then we're gonna move to the book suggestion of the week. As usual, I'm gonna give you 3 quotes that are super useful in my daily life to improve my performance, but also my well-being. And we're gonna finish it off with the technology that enhanced my work. This week, we're gonna talk about why I use an e-reader rather than books. You'll see, you might be surprised, but to me, it's really a game changer, especially with all the travel I do. And the bonus is an album that I've listened to a lot on the bike for the past month. It's a country album with a little fun twist, so hopefully you will like it also. So for this week, race/workout report, we're gonna talk about the race. The race in particular is Gravel Worlds. Gravel Worlds is actually one of the longest race of the year. It's just under 250 kilometers. For those interested, my average power was 275 and my average heart rate was 161. As you can see, the heart rate is pretty high, especially towards the end of the race. Not just because the pace was a little bit higher with 284 watts average, but mostly because the temperature was very, very hot towards the end. So as you can see in the graph, at midpoint of the race, it was approximately 25, but it got up to 37. So the heart rate goes up very high when the temperature are that high. If we go here at the statistic, we can see that the intensity factor was 0.809. That's super high for me. Everything over 0.8 means that I was really on the verge of exploding. TSS is 453. Again, super high, especially that TSS are gauged according to watts, and watts in high heat are lower normally, so the actual impact on your body is even higher than 453 TSS. And calorie burn is 7,734 calorie. So yeah, crazy high. So just for the race description, if you're interested, honestly, I would suggest just go see the live stream on YouTube. It was super well filmed, like a professional road race. They did an amazing job of filming the full pro race for the men and women. So if you want to have an in-depth look at what happened, you can go see the full recap on YouTube on the Gravel Worlds channel. But for now, I just want to give you a quick 2-minute overview of how the race played out. So we started super early. The start was at 5:55 a.m. So the start is in complete darkness, so you have to be crazy careful. It was especially dangerous because normally when you race in the dark, you have some light. So most races that are in the dark are criterium and you have the light of the city, but out on gravel you have zero light, so it was pretty sketchy. But I would say that all the riders were pretty respectful and we gave each other extra space because of the lack of vision out there. So then at 7:30 we can finally see, we witness a super beautiful sunrise, and from now on the racing is really on. At the start of the race, I was super clear of who I wanted to follow. That's an old trick from the road. So being super selective, selectioning one or two rider, you're not gonna let go, and being okay with letting go everybody else. So I had two riders in particular in mind. So I was just following those riders, letting everybody else go up the road if they wanted to. And at 9 a.m. the break was finally established with 5 riders in the break, and I was okay with those 5 riders being off the front. And around that time you hit the first feed zone. Most people decided to go through, but I decided to stop for like 20 to 30 seconds to fill up an extra bottle, and that was super helpful. So not too long after that feed zone, at about 9:30 a.m., that's when a super strong group went up the road with some guys I didn't want to have separation with. So I had to do a crazy hard bridge. It was my error. I was too far off the back, but at least I was able to put off a near maximum 5 minutes to bridge up. And when I did that bridge, pretty much at the exact moment, like 10 seconds after, there was a crossing, and that's where the accident happened. I didn't see really clearly what happened, but just after that we decided to neutralize the race just to figure out what exactly had happened. Luckily nobody was hurt, but it was a super close call. So one of the guy got his bike run off by a car that didn't do his stop sign, so we were not actually in the wrong, it was the other 2 cars. But yeah, after I would say 10 or 15 minutes of soft pedaling, we decided to start racing again, and now the break had more than 6 minutes, so we really had to make a move. And that deciding move happened when Pete Stetna went up the front with Eno and 2 other guys, and the only 2 guys that were able to bridge to them were me and Simon. And from now on we dropped 2 guys, and it was myself, Simon, Pete and Eno, and we were able to bridge up to the front breakaway. That took everything out of me to be honest. It was 90 minutes all out chasing, and during that time the temperature went off to over 30, so over 90 Fahrenheit. And when we made the bridge to the breakaway, I think everybody was super tired, including the guys in the breakaway. And the funny part is that we literally caught them just before the last feed zone. So we decided to all stop. At this point, you're about 60K from the finish. And honestly, I think everybody was pretty much out of water. So we all stopped and decided to take 30 seconds to fill up water. So right after the feed zone, we were now a group of 8. So 4 riders from the breakaway and the 4 of us that bridge. And then attack were flying, and I finally find myself at the front with Eno and Simon. Everybody else was dropped, and we kind of, I don't know, rolled together pretty smoothly, but the heat just got the best of me. They were trying to attack me, but honestly in my head I was like, you don't really need to play strategic right now. If you just attack 100% or not even like 80%, I'm not gonna be there anymore. And that's eventually what happened. They both were able to distance me at like 5K from the finish, and they sprinted for the win, and Simon took it, crossed the line just after, and I was like 30 seconds after. Honestly, it took me like 45 minutes to be back to myself. I got checked by the ambulance. I think it was clearly heat exhaustion, but luckily I didn't have anything serious. And as usual, fast forward to the end of the day, it was champagne shower for the last finisher. So we all did the champagne for the last guy that was able to finish the 150 miles right after podium. So now let's switch to the AR energy tip. This week we're gonna talk about creatine and why I think it's a well worth trade-off for endurance athlete. So I know that creatine makes you gain weight because it creates water retention. So for me, I can see like a 2 pounds difference when I use creatine, but I think it's well worth it. Not necessarily for the benefits, but mostly for the health benefits. So I would say I take creatine for health reason and not really for performance reason, but I'll take the performance increase for sure, So the 4 benefit I wanted to mention to maybe convince you to consider creatine is first muscle mass preservation. This is super important, especially when you do 30-hour week in training camp, for example. The second one is that it improves glycogen replenishment because the water content in your muscle cell is higher. The third one is that it actually helps mitigate the effect of sleep deprivation. Those are pretty new study, but they see that taking creatine after a bad night of sleep actually can help reduce the bad impact. So I think this is especially useful for travel days or super early races. For example, the start of Gravel Worlds was at 5:55 a.m. So that's like a 3:30 wake up time. So for sure you're losing some sleep. So having that creatine in your system can potentially help. And the last one is actually why I started taking creatine. It's to reduce brain damage. So they actually done some study into animal model, and they see that taking creatine can help mitigate those brain damage negative repercussion. My protocol is pretty simple. So I take 7 grams a day and I pump it up to 10 grams on days that I don't get as much sleep as I need. The creatine that I take is the Perfect Sport creatine. I take this one because it's Informed Choice tested, so I know that it's not tainted with any illegal supplement, so I have the peace of mind when I'm getting drug tested. So now for the AR book suggestion. This week the book is As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, so literally a classic. I'm gonna read you 5 quotes from the book as usual. So first quote is, "Man is literally what he thinks, his character being the complete sum of all his thought. If no useful seeds are put into it, then an abundance of useless weed seed will fall therein and will continue to produce their kind." So the second quote is, "Men imagine that thought can be kept secret, but it cannot. It rapidly crystallizes into habits, and habits solidify into circumstances." And the last one is, "Calmness of mind is one of the most beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is the result of a long and patient effort of self-control. Lastly, we're going to go to the technology that enhanced my work this week. This week I want to talk about my e-reader. So I've used an e-reader since 2 years now. At first, I really was not sure. I really like books, and I think there's for sure stuff I miss about books when I use an e-reader, but I think it's mostly a positive. So firstly, you don't get all the negative thing that comes with smartphones. So there is no like distraction on it, but also there is no light coming out from the e-reader. It actually reflects light. So it's exactly as if you were reading on a page. So you don't have the same negative impact of eye strain or blue light. The great thing that I think e-reader have over books is that they're really more compact. So I like to read like 4 or 5 books at the same time, and that's just very heavy when you're always traveling. So my e-reader is 200 grams, and bringing 5 books in my backpack would be way more than that. So it allows to be very minimalist. The other thing that I like is that my note that I take on my e-reader, they go directly to my computer, so it's very easy for me to, in the plane or whatever, when I have some free time, I can just go to my note and use them for creativity purpose. And the last one I would say is probably the biggest, is that it changed my relationship a lot to books. So before, when I bought a book, I felt like because it was an object that I really needed to like finish it or read it through. But now I see book really as a way to improve myself. So if I feel that a book is not bringing me value in any way, I can just decide not to finish it. So really seeing those learning effort not as a way to just put more stuff in your mind or just brag about how much book you've read, but as a way to really take that wisdom and apply it, because wisdom without application is useless, as the Stoic would say. So for myself, I use a Supernote Nomad. I like this one because I can write on it with an actual stylus. So the Kindle, for example, you have to type with your finger, and there's some study that says that writing like by hand makes you remember your note better than typing them. So that's why I like the idea of having one that I can actually like draw idea, and sometimes words cannot translate exactly what I want to say. Sometimes I like to draw stuff or draw arrow or whatever. So the bonus for this week is the album I listened to the most on the bike this month actually. So it's Passage du Désir. It's a French title, but it's an English album. So the artist is Johnny Blue Sky, but the actual name of the artist is Sturgill Simpson. I've been listening to him for a long time. I would say that this album is more easy to get through, less experimentation, just all the songs are super catchy, and yeah, I propose it to you. It's a super good album for a road trip or a long bike ride. So that's it for this week. As usual, thank you very much for listening all the way through. And if you like the content, I know I didn't say it in previous episode, but please share it with your friends if you think it could help improve their lives. And other than that, as usual, take care of yourself by making the most optimal choice in every moment, and do the same to take care of the ones you love.